Hello, everyone. This is Kevin L. Jackson, CEO of GC GlobalNet and host of Digital Transformers on Supply Chain Now. I am streaming from Washington, D.C. today to capture the opportunity to speak with an amazing individual, Heather Gantt-Evans from Sailpoint. Thank you, Heather, for spending some time with me.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, no, so am I. Heather is SailPoint's Chief Information Security Officer. She is responsible for designing SailPoint's next generation cybersecurity strategy in order to decrease risk and exposure points across the business and to increase collaboration between the teams. She was formerly with Home Depot and has a wealth of experience from strategic security roles at Ernst Young and with Booz Allen Hamilton, where she supported the Air Force Cyber Command and served in the U.S. Army Reserve for 6 years. By the way, Heather, I won't hold that against you. I retired from the Navy in '94. So, Heather, what got you started in cybersecurity?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So I did purposely pursue a career in technology because at the time while I was in college and serving the Army Reserves, I was a single mom and I was really craving the stability that a career in technology could offer me and my family. And I would have to say it was partly chance that got me involved in cybersecurity. I had taken a role at Booz Allen Hamilton to serve as an IT analyst for Air Force Real Property Agency. And shortly thereafter, a contracted position came up for Air Force Cyber Command that was for a cyber threat intelligence analyst. And as an Army reservist, I was serving as an all-source threat intelligence analyst, and I had a graduate degree in information technology management. And so they just said, "Hey, let's see if the government sponsor is happy with your candidature." And so I interviewed with what turned out to be an amazing mentor in my career, who saw a lot of potential in me and who helped me every single day to understand my worth in the cybersecurity field and never made me feel like the newbie. So I really, got a good taste of cybersecurity because of him.
Well, I tell you, not many people get to do the job they went to college for.
Right.
So as the CISO at Sailpoint, what is your role? What are your primary challenges there?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for the cybersecurity of our business and our products. So I do own the product security side of the house. There's a lot of challenges, especially, in with the type of cyber activity that we saw against security vendors that FireEye, Microsoft, SolarWinds, and others disclosed late last year. We have to stay on top of our toes. But meanwhile, our cybersecurity resources have been in a pressure cooker since the pandemic started. And so I do have a very high performing team. And I think one of my biggest challenges is throttling them and making sure that they're not taking passion projects to the infinite degree and not taking any time for them. It's harder for our cybersecurity team members and all team members in today's working world to draw those work-life balance boundaries. And so that's a big challenge, is just making sure my team is doing that for themselves. I would also say another challenge is prioritizing my partner's time that they use for advancing cybersecurity initiatives. So like IT and DevOps, just like a cybersecurity team cannot do everything at once, our partners can't either. In fact, they do cybersecurity part-time in many ways because that's not their full-time job. Even the strongest security culture, that's the case. So I'm lucky to work in a strong security cultured organization where I rarely have to waste my time explaining anybody the why, but still the win is hard, right? Because we have to rack and stack and prioritize.
Well, the whole environment has changed. In fact, over the past decade, but yes, in the past year, where you've gone from being in the office to everyone working from home. Your scope has really changed. How has that really affected your career and your approach to being a CISO Do you have to go to everyone's home and check out their home network?
You know, I would say that there's two pieces to your question there, right? The long-term evolution of the CISO over the past decade, and then the short-term over the pandemic that we've seen. And so to start with the pandemic and the move to work from home, it's definitely pushed CISOs to adopt a zero trust architecture strategy quicker, because to your point, all of our employees are no longer just bringing their own devices, they're bringing their own environments, and it's impossible to secure all those perimeters. We don't even own those perimeters. And so moving to that identity defined security architecture is hugely important. Also, I think our IT team does a great job partnering with us to educate our end users on how to secure their home network, which is something that I don't think security awareness and training really focused on previously as heavy. But over the past decade, we've seen some other changes, right? We've seen the threat landscape evolve from theft to destruction. And so in turn, that's evolved the CISO from a back of shop tinkerer to a front of board protector of business continuity. And that's definitely impacted me, because even prior to becoming a CISO, I was seeing those changes and had raised my hand to focus on cyber resilience for financial sector while I was in supporting E&Y. And so to achieve cyber resilience, the CISO has to be far more focused on organizing the whole business. Think executive tabletops and cyber resilience or enterprise resilience level playbooks that are so much more than just organizing within the cyber organization.
Well, you really have to be an expert in the business as well, right?
Absolutely.
So these enterprises have really increasingly adopted managed services and cloud services, and you no longer work on your own infrastructure. You said you are now really, you're part of the organizational leadership. So what have you seen with respect to the changes in organizational leadership as this critical data and information not only goes to these outside organizations, but to everyone's home? The ecosystem that you operate in, the business ecosystem is really changed and expanded.
Yeah, I would say first, it's not all bad, right? So there's a reason that I think in the executive order that came out this past May, that there's a push to go to SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS services, because it does increase the resiliency of the business. And so all of Sailpoint's critical business processes are running on SaaS, for example. And that does in many ways allow me to sleep better knowing that we have a lot more resiliency and redundancy built in. However, we're seeing a trend of third-party risk becoming so much more important. And so I think we'll continue to see refinement in how third-party risk is being handled. Because to your point, we have to understand all of the data that's being leveraged in these services and ensure that we understand the criticality and risk of that data, and that we've got commensurate third-party, essentially guidelines on how to manage that data in accordance with our expectations. So we'll see more third-party risk focus and evolution. I think we're going to see some improvements on how we do best practices in third-party risk. And then I would say that the other thing that's really critical is that managing cloud services are not set and forget. And I think that there's certainly been some propensity to feel that way, but it's a bi-directional responsibility to secure these cloud and managed services. And so we have to read the fine print on those security configuration guidelines and make sure that we're monitoring our security configuration continuously, and that we have shared success metrics. And honestly, it all takes more increased monitoring and collaboration to be successful with managing cloud services.
Well, this is really a change in strategy, and it affects the strategic decisions and goals across the entire organization. So information security seems to be core to just about everything now. And how does that affect the decision making and the processes?
Yeah, I would say the honest answer is that oftentimes it doesn't, at least at the right
Hmm.
point. However, if cybersecurity has a seat at the right tables, then information security considerations weigh heavily into digital transformation, cloud migration, user experience goals, just to name a few. And that allows security to help the business go faster and more securely, right? When people think of brakes, they think they're there to slow down, but really they're there to help the business or the vehicle be able to accelerate with more confidence. And so same with security in the business. So if we're seated at the table early enough, we can help serve that acceleration role. But
Right.
I would say most of the time how it happens is security is kind of brought in at the tail end of a strategic business decision. And that means that we oftentimes cause rework, right? In that we have to bolt on some security considerations towards the end of the project. And so I think it's all about making sure that security is involved earlier.
So sounds like you have to have a real strong relationship with like the CEO of the organization and all the senior executives. How, as a CISO, how do you establish that relationship? And what about the CIO?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? I think every organization, whether it be cybersecurity or IT or HR, we all have a first nature to be pretty insular and just look down into our organization. It
Right.
does, to your point, come down to a lot of just listening to what's important to them right now, extending yourself to understand their priorities as opposed to only reaching out when you need something. I think goes a long way.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the things that's very, from a culture point of view, you really need to change what data is within the organization. I mean, you always say that cybersecurity is everyone's job, but it's really not a job. It has to be a way of life. I would imagine. And now people are saying that like data is the new oil, so you have to watch out for those oil spills. Do you do you agree with that sentiment? Is it really that critical, or is the culture need to really change a lot?
Yeah, I would say that data is the new oil. It resonates with me because
Mm.
in many senses, businesses that have undergone a digital transformation are more resilient to change and more adaptable to their customers' needs. So digital transformation is core still to a lot of businesses' strategies and being able to achieve them. And data fuels that digital transformation. So it really is kind of what keeps everything running. But to your point, it's messy when it gets out, right? And the interesting thing about the role of the CISO now is we're not just protecting data staying where it is, but we're protecting data to maintain its integrity and availability as well, which complicates the challenge even more.
Well, one thing you mentioned the availability or the famous triad in cybersecurity: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But earlier we were talking about the fact that everyone is adopting cloud services where availability is not in your hands, it's in the responsibility of the communication service provider. So it's not in the cloud, it's not in your organization, it's really yet another party that you have to deal with. So is you as a CISO, are you still responsible for the full CIA, or how does that play in your everyday work?
Yeah, it's unfortunately we can never shed off the responsibility fully, right? In that we are responsible for a lot of due diligence around the cyber hygiene and practices of who we do business with. And we're responsible for making sure that during contractual negotiations that we've got all the guidelines that to meet, for example, Sailpoint security standards in how it is we transact and do business together. And then, like I said, we also have to ensure that we're managing any of our own security configurations appropriately. And so there is still an immense level of responsibility that comes with those cloud and managed services. And so, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to squeak out of that one, but I do think that it does help CISOs rest a bit more at night to know that a lot of times those services come in with built-in redundancy, and it just gives us that layer of security from the perspective of I feel more secure knowing that my data has built-in redundancy, and I think that we'll see more and more of that movement because it is reassuring.
Yeah, just actually understanding your service level agreements and making sure that they meet your business needs and requirements. Yet another reason why the CISO has to be an expert in the business, not just in security. So what does the future look like for today's CISO? I mean, things have been changing dramatically. Is this change going to be continuous, or is it going to accelerate?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see accelerated change, but there's some changes that I'm really excited about for the future CISO. The first is that I really hope to continue to see CISO tenures increasing in the future. So we've noticed some slight increase over the last couple of years of CISO tenure. And I think that as organizations continue to leverage the CISO as an asset to business continuity, there's going to be more recognition that the CISO is managing multi-year roadmaps that no one can accomplish in a 1.5 to 3 year tenure. And so
right.
we need to start giving the CISO a little bit more security that they're not going to be used as the scapegoat for any little thing that goes wrong, because it's always a matter of time. And we need to give CISOs the support to be able to finish those long-term roadmaps. So I hope to continue to see that increase in CISO tenure. I'm also really excited to see a continued focus on identity security. So like how I was talking about earlier, where now employees are bringing their own environment, identity is the new perimeter, right? And so with the executive orders push for zero trust architecture across the government, I think we'll continue to see adoption in the commercial sector as well. And I'm really excited about that. And then lastly, this may be controversial, but I think that the future CISO is going to have a lot more direct involvement or ownership over areas of dependency that are required to be successful. So even companies with strong security first cultures are still falling short with the basics: patch management, disaster recovery, asset management, all of which are required to protect assets and be able to recover them quickly when protective measures fail, and they will. So those are some of the changes that I'm really excited to see in the future.
Wow, so thank you for that great insight. I guess the role of the CISO is just going to grow. So as we close up, how can my audience actually reach out to you to find out more? I mean, listening to you really is exciting.
Oh, thank you. Please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, Heather-Gantt-Evans at the end of the URL. And I would be happy to connect.
No, well, great. So excellent. So with that, I'd like to thank you and the audience for spending their time with us today. Don't forget to check out my show, Digital Transformers, wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to subscribe. So we'll be ending the live stream now. Thank you and have a great day.